We're live, I think.
All right, yeah, so we're live. Hey guys, thanks for joining. I'm Ian Belina, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by Henrik, the CEO of Chromia, formerly known as Chromaway by Chromopolis. Right, lots of names, but hey, it's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome, Henrik. How are you?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm dialing in from Stockholm, Sweden. It's evening, but the sun is up.
That's the sun is up. Nice. So how are things in Stockholm, Sweden?
Yeah, it's actually a national day today. What can be better than to talk about
National Day?
Yeah.
It's Chromia Day?
Yeah, exactly. The Chromia Day. Everyone is cheering on the streets, as usual.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
So that's why I had my Power to the Public Chromia t-shirt on me today to celebrate. Yeah.
Nice. So tell us about yourself.
Yes, so as you see, if you're watching this, I'm an old man approaching my middle age. So I started off as a developer, but studied economics and social sciences, worked in finance for some time, then wanted to do startups. And I got to know a developer from Ukraine that worked with me. But sort of that web startup didn't fly. But then this guy from Ukraine introduces me to Bitcoin. And the project that he had started in 2012 called the Color Coins project. Yeah. So Alex, who is now our CTO, had made the first user-generated tokens protocol. Bitcoin was basically the only blockchain at the time. This was before Ethereum and all the private blockchain and everything. But for the first time, you could issue tokens. We thought about stocks and real estate titles and all that, gold coins, stable coins. It was an open source project, and yeah.
So quick question. So were you guys part of the Colored Coins project? Because that's kind of how I think lots of people came to know you guys, right?
Yeah.
What was your involvement with Colored Coins?
Yeah, I started off as a developer, but always with an angle to see what we can, if we can do something commercial around this. So yeah, basically the open source project, there was a lot of clever people there. Vitalik Buterin and Jimmy Song and a lot of people that are now in the field. But it was a lot of discussions on the protocols, etc. And it basically broke down into several companies in 2014. And we started Chromaway.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I can talk for ages. The history of everything. But
okay, so where did the idea for Chromaway come from?
It was a little bit strange, but at the time, 2014, we were fortunate to have a bank as a customer. It was basically something no one had heard about, a bank on blockchain, and exploring this because so that was a crazy achievement. It was before R3 and IBM and all that. So we thought that this is cool. We start a project and commercialize a little bit around this technology. So we did basically a stable coin. It was a euro-backed tokens transported on the Bitcoin blockchain. We had plans to do something like Lightning Network to speed it up, etc. It was intended for daily purchases in Estonia, done by the biggest domestic commercial bank in Estonia, LHV Bank. But eventually, we were in the public beta and had some people using it, but then they didn't really want to commercialize it. And we found out that a blockchain is just a list of transactions. So we need to do a lot of tweaking in order to make it fast enough to have for a real world solution. So we stored everything in a database, basically the complete Bitcoin blockchain. And that's sort of, in order to have a fast retrieval and know exactly what's my current balance, we need to have that fast. So that game that was the first basics of this idea to combine a traditional database with a blockchain into one unit. We now call it relational blockchain, and that's the foundation of Chromia.
So Chromia is a blockchain with that acts like a database, basically, right?
Yeah.
Relational. database with a blockchain.
Yeah, or a database that is as secure as a blockchain.
Okay. Now, why is that very innovative for those who aren't so technical?
Yeah, blockchain, I mean, I think we all can agree that it's about managing data securely. And the best way to manage data, I mean, before blockchain, you manage data in different way. First, it was a file system, then it was some kind of COBOL programming, then it was B trees, and then it was relational databases. And that became the gold standard of database management behind every company such as Oracle is based on that idea, relational database. The web is built on relational databases, you know, WordPress connecting to MySQL, Facebook being done as well on PHP and MySQL, and all that. Enterprise applications, I would say that 99% of all enterprise applications have a relational database behind it. This is normally called SQL database. So it's basically the gold standard of managing data. So it's really strange to me to be able to, why do I need to explain it all the time? Well, this is a good thing because it's used everywhere. There are several implementations of it. Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, open source editions, Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, etc. There's a lot of, even SAP have their own relation.
Okay. Now, so what is the big use case for relational blockchain, right?
Well, the thing is, you can do a lot of things faster and easier. And that's an enabler for doing the kind of decentralized applications that we are, well, many of us are dreaming about. Say, for example, you want to make a social network that is controlled by the users. So not only a single company making taking all the benefits of what the users produce, but you can have it as a decentralized application, making sure that contributions are valued. Governance of this whole entity, your social network, could be done on chain using voting. You can implement different models like democracies, or that can be done in a lot of ways, or dictatorships if you prefer that, and can get approval from the users. There's a lot of things you can work on that way. But to do that, we simply haven't seen those yet from the other blockchains, because it's one of the aspects is it's really hard to do. When you can do a proof of concept, something, but when you want to do a complex application, you basically will need a database like this that we are providing, or a chain of layers and a very complex architecture. Basically, you wouldn't think about it if you would do this as a normal application. You wouldn't think about using something else than
okay. Now going to your website, which is Chromia.com, right? You guys claim that you're building fully functional dApps, right? Decentralized applications.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about why you're focusing on dApps?
Yeah, I mean, we actually started off now for several years to work with enterprise blockchains. That's also fantastic technology to have of course, a relational database for enterprises. But to be honest, we felt it's kind of slow moving and not that exciting, and the potential of making really user control applications is immense. It's a source of freedom for the world, basically. Applications are governing a lot of our lives, and this could be an enabler for something very good in the future. Okay. So that's why we're interested in, and the fact that you can do decentralized application using this technology is really exciting to us.
Now, when you guys launched, and disclosure, I am an investor in Chromia, right? Definitely not financial advice. Go do your own research. But with that being said, the protocol space or blockchain space is very competitive now, right? It seems there are 10 blockchains launching every single month, right? Yeah. So what exactly is the main differentiator between you guys, and how do you plan to get widespread adoption, mass adoption right? Because Ethereum has such a huge developer community and such a huge head start, basically first mover advantage, right? So how do you plan to catch up?
Yeah, so developers, according to me, and if you look at history, they prefer really productive tools. It's not like you always keep using the same language or anything like that. I mean, the web started with PHP. That was like the completely dominant language. Then someone found something more productive, like Ruby on Rails, and developers flocked to that kind of new technology. And then, now it's JavaScript on the server and on the client, and React, etc. That's taking over a lot of the momentum. So developers want productive tools, and I would say that Chromia is the most productive way to make a decentralized application, because it has the power of a database and the speed and the ease of development. One example is before Consensus, we had like a workshop with developers, and one of our developers, Ricardo, he made this tic-tac-toe app as an example, and it took him 3 hours to do the backend code, and it's like 140 lines of code, and it has the complete logic on chain. Tic-tac-toe isn't the most challenging thing, but at least you can detect wins, you can do all the moves, and you have a list of players signing up, everything to basically do a game in 140 lines of code. So doing that on Ethereum, that's if someone in the audience can do it faster, or fewer lines of code, or even do the tic-tac-toe game, will be really interesting to see.
Okay, very interesting.
So that's our challenge.
Okay, now what's the level of development with the product?
Yeah, so we're launching now. Basically, when we started the Chromia product, we already had a private blockchain that was built on this technology, so that we've been working on for years. So it works for enterprise customers. So what we needed, we had a large part built already. So what we need to add is a little bit more of the consensus, the token systems, etc., to make it work in a public blockchain context. Another thing that we needed to make a new programming language, because even though it's a database SQL, the language of databases isn't it's simply old and not secure enough to work in a blockchain context. So we made a new language, Rel, that is both a programming language like anyone, a normal programming language, as well as a database language. And that's finished. You can try it out, read the tutorial, download a Docker container, try it out, make dApps, etc.
How long does it take for a developer to learn Rel? Is it based off any other languages?
Yeah, so if you have, if you're accustomed to databases and have thought about those kind of,
it's kind of like SQL.
Yeah, I mean, if you know SQL, you have a little bit of a head start, but you don't have to know that either. Basically, a normal bright developer can pick it up in a week or even faster.
Okay.
It's not too complex. It's 1/6 of the code lines of SQL, and it has some kind of nice features for. It's a lot easier, I would say, than a lot of blockchain development tools, because you have that power. Yeah.
So let's take a question from the audience. Maxim is asking, what would be an ideal client and what would be an ideal client and ideal use case for Chromia and Rel?
Anything where you have a frustrated blockchain developer that cannot achieve the deadlines, then you have our perfect customer, probably. But basically complex applications where you want to have the rules of the system completely on chain. So it could be a social network. It could be a new kind of game, not only about NFTs, but the complete logic on blockchain, something that we're exploring now. But it could also be enterprise applications, actually. We are probably, we will see some enterprise applications on Chromia even this year. Because a lot of enterprises, they don't want to run nodes in a private blockchain, but they want the security of of it. So it's a good alternative where you have this.
So that's launching this year, you said?
Sorry?
Enterprise dApps are launching this year. Okay, so what's the roadmap? So you said you're launching the. Can you kind of walk us through that again?
Yeah, we have testnet now launching on Monday.
Okay.
I think it's on Monday, anytime soon at least. And quite quickly after that, we will migrate to the first edition of a mainnet. But of course, this is an iterative approach. This will not be perfect at the start. We will gradually improve.
That's also this year?
Yeah. For example, onboard more providers that are actually helping out to run the system. It would be slightly
more
leaning on us at the start and the initial providers, but want to have it.
Now, what happens to current token holders when you switch over to the mainnet? Is there some kind of token swap?
Yes, we will have a way to convert the tokens. The token is now an ERC20 token to a native token and move between back and forth, etc. We will have support for that, as well as and also an automatic pricing contract for the tokens versus Ether running on the Ethereum blockchain.
All right. Next question from the Wolf of Main Street on YouTube. What's the circulating supply?
So now, I mean, the total amount hard cap ever is 1 billion, and now it is 5% in rotation. That we launched it on an exchange last week.
Now, can you kind of walk us through why you chose to have a very small initial release? Is that something your team chose upon, or something the exchange forced you to do?
No, I mean, we always said that this is a long-term thing for us. So we don't want to have everything released at the start. So gradually increased supply of tokens to make some price stability, and it's not useful at the start for everyone. So to have it a little bit slower moving over time.
Okay, people are asking is there a timeline on the mainnet besides just this year? Is there a date maybe?
It's a software development. It's very, very hard to say exact dates. So because you change how much you're adding to the mainnet, etc. But the goal is to have the mainnet very soon after testnet. So I would say the first edition maybe at the end of June, and gradually improve on things after that.
Wow! So testnet on Monday, then possibly mainnet by end of June,
it's a first edition in order. We need
July, right?
Yeah, mainnet. It's an etiquette, but we need a network in order to onboard providers to be able to run it. So we need to have something live very soon. Doesn't mean that it's the complete network with running dApps and everything. And we will improve that. But I mean, it's this year at least we'll have a very nice.
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah.
So next question from the audience. Luciana is saying, will you update your website? Right now, there isn't much information available about Chromia.
Yes, of course, we'll update the webpage because, working hard on delivering things as well. And it's also about marketing and communication. So most of the information is in the white paper, I would say. And but also what we do have, maybe not on the webpage, is the documentation, which is I think is quite good for the language rel and how to make clients that are connecting to the blockchain, etc. So,
okay. Next question from Jorge. Do you have any news or any updates on brand new exchanges?
I can at least say that we will list on more exchanges. So that's
There's still
There's some news or
conversations.
a public statement, but I cannot say which ones, etc. But
Yeah, understandable.
a series of listings, yes.
All right. Now, any news you have coming up or any partnerships?
Yes, for example, when I talked about enterprise applications, last year we built a product in green finance. It's about environmental impact reporting for green bonds, including issuers, financial actors, etc. They weren't really that keen on running nodes. So this year, we will not do it, but a development company will build on Chromia, explore that for this use case. So hopefully they will think it's a great use case and move it on to the Chromia network. That is highly likely. So that's basically an enterprise application running on a public blockchain, which is good. We are also working with a game studio based in New York to do some games, showcasing the potential of the Chromia platform in that we can have the logic on chain. So not only NFT tokens, not CryptoKitties that are only binary codes, but having the complete logic. So no one can shut down the game. It will run forever. Maybe make the users in control over patching. So you cannot change rules arbitrarily. The client should be open source, so you can download it always. So it's an entity that will live forever, controlled by users, which is something much more powerful than just having binary.
Now, that kind of makes me think of Loom Network, because they had a similar concept of basically creating decentralized dApps on the Ethereum blockchain, where there's on the side chains, people can kind of fork the games. And that way, if a developer was to ever update or nerf anything in the game, they could always have that old version of the game and still play that.
Yeah, you should make it easy to fork the blockchains, and that's also goes for Chromia. It's designed to be easily forkable. So if people don't think that the network behaves in a good way, you can always.
Now, is Chromia fully open source? If not, which parts are open source?
Everything in the source code is open source. Yes.
So it's up on your GitHub now. Everything.
Sorry.
Everything is up on a GitHub.
No, we are using Bitbucket for main everything, and not everything is published yet as open source, but everything we've written so far is on Bitbucket, and most of it is public, but everything will of course be open source, and main things will be under the AGPL license, so it's a very, very open source and free software compatible license, so it's not something.
Now, so how do people access that? They have to go to bitbucket.com.
Yeah.
Do you plan to link that on your website?
Yes, you can go to bitbucket.com and check for Chroma Wallet, I think is the name of us.
Chroma Wallet. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I think it's also linked in the documentation. It should be.
Okay, so next question. What's the utility of the token?
So contrary to a lot of other blockchains, the users do not need to have, users of an app doesn't need to own our token. So it works with sort of free-to-play games and public offerings. I mean, public sector applications and things like that. It goes to a complete population. You cannot force every citizen to go onto an exchange and buy cryptocurrency in order to use an app. So instead, our token is the payment for hosting and running the applications is done normally by the application developer, or actually the application itself. But normally the developer starts at least to pay. And so token is used to pay for running applications, for hosting. you as an application developer choose which providers you want to run your application. You also choose what kind of service you need in order to achieve.
The token is for hosting and running applications.
Yes, but this can also be used for inter dApp, moving money between apps, basically, for users, or moving money into the system and out of the system. So it can be an interchange token, as well as it has its benefits in the form of staking, or staking is not the perfect word, but insurance, collateral, protection against misbehavior by providers. The providers can put up insurance and say that if we cannot live up to our SLA agreements, this amount of Chromia tokens will be gone.
So speaking of staking, is there a staking or node strategy or mining strategy?
So it's not a proof of stake blockchain, because we don't really believe that's a very good model. Neither proof of work, neither proof of stake, because it's hard to see exactly who is behind the stake. And
so what's the consensus algorithm you're using?
So at core, it's a practical Byzantine fault tolerance, a very known and experienced and good algorithm.
Sorry, what's that called?
Practical PBFT, practical Byzantine fault tolerance. It's an
okay, PBFT. Yeah, I've heard.
So it's basically a voting scheme between the providers. Ultimately, the providers, basically the companies that are running the blockchain and providing services and providing hardware, will control governance and updates of the network, because they have an incentive to have a working blockchain that is attractive. Otherwise, they cannot sort of sell their services, cannot sell the hosting. So they have an incentive to have a good network. So, but it will be.
So hold on. So people who run nodes are basically voting, right, for governance.
Yes, for the core, the core system chains.
Okay, and now is that a finite number or is that infinite in terms of anybody can go out there and vote?
No, not everyone. Anyone can basically fork and observe a node and follow what's happening on the blockchain. But we cannot have gamers running it on the gaming rigs and turning off the power, etc. So it's not like Bitcoin and Ethereum where every computer is running the network.
So how many nodes do you plan to have?
Yeah, so I mean, for the system, the core system, I guess it needs to be a limited number. So I would say maybe 20 to running the core system chain. But then maybe we can have a larger piece of providers for applications, because every application decides who should run your app, which providers, so in which countries. So for example, if you don't like a particular country, you don't trust the governments, you can select to not have providers from that country. You can also make an educated guess on the risks of the network. How many nodes? It's up to you to decide how many nodes will replicate it. You know the names and the reputation of the providers, so you can make your own guess if they are colluding against you. So unless you believe in a world conspiracy, if you have selected carefully reputable companies from different countries, it's basically impossible that they would.
Okay, so can you walk us through that selection process, right? So let's say people in the community want to partake in this governance, right? What's the process of that?
So the application developer decides how the application should be run.
So each application is different. Each application can have different nodes.
Yeah. So at the start, application developer says the application will use these providers, or the application developer says the users of an application will choose the providers, and I give away my power. So that's a better model. But to simplify, let's say the application developer decides.
Okay. Now, how about the general Chromia nodes?
Yeah.
That's something, the foundation, or Chromia or Chromia?
Yeah. So we will be one provider. So basically, it's a network of the core, the first providers that will control the network ultimately. So I would say. Yeah.
Okay, and then what's the rewards for policy, or I guess how much money can people make? Well, not money, but in terms of tokens, right? What's the reward equation like?
For I don't have that in my head actually. Exactly.
Okay, maybe at a high level, can you kind of explain the emission formula, right? For
tokens?
Nodes? Yeah, for tokens. People who have nodes, whether it's an application node or a general governance node.
Yeah, so you basically get paid for the services you provide, etc. As an application provider. If no one picks you, no one wants to run your hardware, they don't trust you, then you make nothing. If you're very popular, you make a lot of money. So it's basically very similar to cloud hosting in a way. You're a cloud operator.
So it's based on storage and transactions?
Yeah, so a mixture of how much storage your application uses, what kind of performance you need. Do you want to have a dedicated, very fast servers, or are you okay with maybe something that's almost free, like a shared server for that? So it's basically per application. So,
okay. All right, next question from Alex on Twitter. Can post-chain be used for Swedish authorities?
The Chromia, the mother company of Chromia, has been working with enterprise blockchain for some time. One of our most famous projects is what we did with the Swedish land registry to basically have smart contracts for buying and selling real estate. And that solution is it's running on post-chain at the core. But it's not completely live yet. We're waiting for some juridical discussions around digital signatures in order to take it forward. But that's an application which could be running as a service for governments. We're also doing a lot of work in this field around land registration. Recently, we've been doing projects in Australia, New South Wales, in India. The other day, we also announced that we are working with the chambers of commerce in Colombia around the business registry. And that is something we could explore for using also for
now all these different opportunities. How are they coming to you? Are they coming through a sales team or a business dev team, or through investors, your network?
Main, I would say, is through reputation. So a lot of inbound, but we're also now planning to have more and more of other, like a partnership strategy. So that goes as well for Chromia. We don't want to be the only developer that knows this. So we want to have a lot of partnerships.
Now, did Ivan Correa, by any chance, have any help to anything to do with the Colombia?
I'm not sure exactly who.
With Monte Carlo Capital, based in Colombia.
To be honest, I don't know how we got that project.
Okay. But, yeah, because I think he's a big evangelist for Chromia, investor. I think he was doing some kind of events for you guys down there. So I was just kind of
exactly. Yeah, we were visiting, and so that's what you go to conferences, you talk with someone, and suddenly you have a project. So Canada as well, it's another country we've been exploring blockchain. So we do a lot of as well as, of course, a lot of secret commercial projects. And I think really a great deal of this that are now done on private blockchain could actually be run on a public blockchain. Because if what you want is transparency and security and good performance, Chromia is a very good model because,
Okay. All right. So Is there anything else in particular we haven't covered about Chromia that you think is unique or something you think the audience would enjoy discovering?
I mean, I mentioned what is unique. The core technology is unique in the combination between a database and a blockchain, relational blockchain model. Also, different but not unique is that the application pays for itself, not the users. I didn't mention, but it's also good performance. We can do 1,000 transactions a second, and one transaction can be a database transaction. So, and a database transaction could be pay out dividends to all the shareholders or move all the troops in a game. So you can do quite a lot of these operations.
So 1,000 transactions per second.
Yeah, I mean but then also look at what is a transaction. So our transactions are probably a little bit more powerful than a normal transaction because it's a database transaction, which is
okay. Yeah. Next question from Alex again. Do you reckon authorities can benefit from blockchain solutions in general? I think he means, can governments benefit from blockchain? Yes. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a simple answer. Yes, right. There's lots of archaic solutions out there that can definitely be innovated upon.
Yeah, we were actually at the World Bank together with Swedish Land Registry and the guy from the Swedish Land Registry, Mats, he had a slide which says the ultimate public sector application. It's like, and that makes me quite happy as a blockchain developer if you say it's the ultimate public sector application, because it can provide transparency, security, everything that should be done for society as a whole, where we are citizens. We want something that is public, secure, tamper-proof, etc. So that's maybe the biggest potential for blockchain to govern our lives in a better way.
All right, now let's kind of, I guess, talk about some things that aren't Chromia. What's your take overall on Bitcoin, right? Do you think Bitcoin is going to be the primary player in crypto down the line? Or do you think there'll be some other project besides yours, of course?
Don't take it as investment advice, anything. But sometimes I did some investment advice on Bitcoin, like told all my friends to buy it to 250 and things like that, and did myself. But then I had to sell again to pay for employees. But I think that Bitcoin could have a role for a very long time. Absolutely.
Now, do you view yourselves as working together with Bitcoin? Right?
I mean, we have a little link to Bitcoin still. It's such a technically different architecture. Bitcoin is good for moving money in a simple way, securely. Even though we can have a long debate on the security, which is best, the Chromia model or the proof of work model. But it's a niche product in a way.
Now
we do have actually one thing, because our consensus model and the chains of anchoring transactions eventually is put as a hash, as the ultimate proof on Bitcoin and Ethereum, to have like a Merkle tree. You can always go back and prove the state of the blockchain in case something really crazy goes.
Now, when you launch the mainnet or testnet, you'll have the blockchain explorer launched as well?
Actually, it is delayed, the Explorer, I would say, compared to the testnet. So it will not be in the first edition of the testnet.
Which edition is that going to be in?
So it's not going to come on Monday, the Explorer. I don't know the delivery times for the Blockchain Explorer. Okay. I mean, in principle, it's not nothing. Somewhere in June, we think, maybe.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, ideally with the mainnet, right? Because if people are going to transfer tokens, they would like to see them.
Yeah. But we have an API. No, but we'll have an Explorer, yeah. So, okay. But so it's not really. I mean, it's not the most difficult thing to build an Explorer in the blockchain development.
Now,
sometimes you need to prioritize.
What's your take on the Facebook coin that I think some publications are announcing is coming out this month?
Haha, yeah.
Or
Actually, if we spoke with
talk
Facebook
about it this
in
month?
2014 or something. So, but
Oh, you did?
it
Oh,
could have
wow.
been a color coin. Who knows? But
Now,
I mean, what can we?
what kind of conversations were you having with Facebook in
Yeah,
2014?
but yeah, it's basically what became their internal currencies, and so probably the beginning of this. So actually have an ex employee as well working on Facebook. So, but to be honest, do we want a Facebook controlled coin, or I don't know exactly how the technology is going to work, but
So
the
from
fact that
reports, it's going to
yeah.
be a stable coin backed with different currencies, and people can use it to transfer via WhatsApp, Instagram, all the Facebook applications, Messenger, right? I mean, I know people in the crypto community are kind of torn, right? People think Facebook, this big giant, this big centralized giant that's not really for privacy, is now trying to leverage crypto for their own gain. But I think it's something that could be a big tipping point to expose cryptocurrencies to Facebook's 2 billion users, which is huge, right? If people discover crypto because they have to send money to their family on WhatsApp or whatever, that gets them in the door, and then they can start learning about Bitcoin, altcoins, exchanges, dexes, building applications, Chromia, even, right?
Yeah,
I feel like prior to getting people to Chromia, at least those who are not developers, you have to first expose them to crypto, right? And I think what Facebook is doing is, I think it's great. I mean, I'm not really. This is more as somebody who wants crypto to go out to the masses, right? So their platform is huge, right? So that's kind of the perspective I have. Now, in terms of centralization, right? I think true decentralization isn't really sustainable, if that makes sense, right? Kind of like Silk Road or the dark web, right? I think at the end of the day, people still like to have somebody they can talk to, whether to say thank you or to curse out, for example, right? I know me personally, right?
Yeah.
I've had my issues with exchanges where having customer support was great, but if something was totally decentralized and there's nobody to contact when you need help, that makes it tougher for the non-techies to join the space.
I mean, but that's a trade-off with the user experience and the security, etc. But it's more about, I would say, the control issues and the power issues, and of course, everything is nice as long as it works. But then that's the problem with all these things actually change, and market shares go down, and banks crashes, and so on. So it's not like we need to really analyze exactly the security model for this. I don't want to go back and just trust big brand names for running everything. So I have not looked exactly into the Facebook model, to be honest. We haven't.
Now, have you heard about Justin Sun's lunch with Warren Buffett?
Yeah. So,
okay, now if you could have lunch with Warren Buffett, what people would you take with you? If you could take 7 people.
How much would I pay to have lunch with him? I'm not sure.
No.
Which
So,
people I would think?
Yeah, what people would you take with you to a lunch with Warren Buffett?
I would definitely take our new Swedish celebrity Greta, who is talking and making everyone aware of the environmental effects and the environmental crisis. So she could join, definitely.
That's Greta, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And otherwise, I would pick some people I would know from the community, maybe. Last year, I think that Justin is doing that as well. But,
anybody in particular?
I would make my CTO Alex, of course.
The CTO?
Yeah.
The whole team.
Yeah.
All right.
Charlie Lee, Winnie Lingham. Yeah.
Now
maybe
So Charlie Lee and Vinny Lingham are advising Chromia, right? Or
yeah, Charlie Lee was an advisor to as well as Vinny Lingham to Chromia for a long time. Vinny Lingham is also, I mean, he's done his own ICOs and tokens, etc. So he's more also an advisor to Chromia. But Charlie Lee is a Chromia advisor, as well as some other people in the industry. Richard Brown, the CTO of R3. And,
now, they were advisors, or they're still advisors?
They're still advisors in Chromia.
Okay.
But
all right. Yeah, I mean, this has been a great interview. People definitely like this. Guys, if you like this interview, definitely give it a thumbs up, like, reshare, repost, send out to your community, your friends, and Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. This is going out on both Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and also gets turned into a podcast. All right, so as we wrap up the show, any last words, Henrik? Anything else you want to share?
Please check it out. Check out the white paper. Of course, I know there's a lot of viewers that are skeptical, as you should be whenever someone comes up with a new blockchain. But this is good stuff. We have a great deal of experience, and read the white paper and make your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you guys are launching a testnet on Monday and a mainnet by next month, people definitely have something they can go out and try out, something tangible they can test out, which is always good. All right, so that's great news. And with that being said, thank you so much, Henrik, for being on the show.
I need to add one thing as well. Of course, we're interested in to stimulate builders on our platform, entrepreneurs and developers, etc. So if you're interested, reach out to us.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Henrik. It was a pleasure. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on the moon.